Over the course of what is now a 24-year-long cinematic history, Wolverine has been a character whose iconic look has been largely avoided in favor of black leather or mostly just regular clothing. Thankfully, however, after all this time, Deadpool and Wolverine rectified that, giving us not just one of his iconic looks, but many, and even finally giving the iconic mask its live-action debut. What I'm going to be doing in this video is taking a look at the live-action history and ranking every one of Wolverine's designs from worst to best. I say designs because most of his looks aren't actually costumes, but I'm including them anyway because there are other aspects to the Wolverine design that allowed them to get away with not giving him a costume for a lot of his appearances. So other aspects of the design will be considered as well, chief among them for all the maskless suits being the hair. What I won't consider are all the shirtless looks unless they have some sort of costume element to them, because at that point I would just be ranking Hugh Jackman's physique, and that's not what I'm here to do. Finally, with the actual costumes from Deadpool and Wolverine, small changes like the mask, sleeves, and shoulder pads are big enough to then constitute its own placement on the list. Wolverine's costume does change quite a bit throughout that movie. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe, help me get to 100,000 subscribers, and let's rank the Wolverine's 20 live-action designs. Wolverine's cameo in X-Men Apocalypse was one of the highlights of the movie, and the design fits perfectly for the context, but there is no denying that he does look a bit silly. They also didn't go all out on adapting the look from the comics, probably because they wanted to show Hugh Jackman's face, so we can't even say that it's fully comic accurate either. I get what they were going for here, but this Wolverine looked a bit too short and not quite bulky enough to accomplish exactly what they were going for, which we could see in the concept art. On top of that, putting Hugh Jackman's face on somebody else's body did look a bit weird. I get what they were trying to go for, but the execution was not great at all. This version of Wolverine is shirtless, and it's kind of impossible to tell what the pants look like, but I'm including it on the list because of how distinct his hair is, which for all intents and purposes is comic accurate, but it is also a bit much. The visuals of this scene are incredible, maybe the single best looking shot of the movie, but for like a main Wolverine, this is not what I would want his hair to look like. For all the complaints about Hugh Jackman being too tall or even good looking to be a perfect Wolverine, it's even more so the case for Henry Cavill, the only non-Hugh Jackman placement on this entire list. The Cavalrine, as Deadpool calls it, simply just doesn't look as much like Wolverine as any of the Hugh Jackmans, because Hugh Jackman just fits the role better. Henry Cavill simply doesn't fit the role as well, which is why, despite the fact that he's wearing an identical outfit to something that Hugh Jackman's Wolverine wore, it is a lot lower on the list. Also because the hair is a bit much as well. Wolverine's hair in Days of Future Past is pretty great, and he rocks the hell out of the 70s outfit, but for all intents and purposes, it is just an outfit, and also one of the less iconic ones, even though he does kinda look cool. All of Logan's looks from Logan make up this placement on the list, since they're all pretty much the same, with the defining feature of him looking older and his more regular looking non-Wolverine hair and beard, which comes together to form what was basically the perfect look for the purpose of the movie, but the old man Logan look was actually done a lot better a little bit later on. Logan's hair in the Wolverine is pretty fantastic, and there's something about the black funeral outfit that really fits the character. That being said, it was never going to be any higher than just this. It's not too iconic, and it is all just black. This look is entirely meant to be a joke, but it's also one of just two designs on this entire list to include a mask, which pretty much entirely carries it, because while the yellow and blue pants do look good, they are just pants, and while obviously Hugh Jackman's physique is fantastic, it isn't exactly a costume. The reason this look isn't higher, despite being one of the two with the mask, is because the mask actually doesn't look anywhere near as good here without the attachment to the shirt. It does look a bit incomplete and a bit cut off. So while this was a funny joke and a good scene, it's not a great look. Patch is a unique design, and a cool one at that is adapted perfectly from the comics, like one-to-one, so no complaints here. Still, while cool, it's fairly simple and not exactly too unique to Wolverine, so I don't think it was ever going to be higher than this point on the list, so this is really as good as it gets for something like Patch. As previously mentioned, the Old Man Logan design from Logan worked perfectly for the movie, but in terms of the design itself, detached from anything, the Old Man Logan cameo from Deadpool and Wolverine is a far better adaptation, including the mutton chops rather than a full beard, and the cowboy hat that tie it all together. Like Patch, this is a perfect one-to-one adaptation of a design that isn't actually a costume, so it was never really going to be any higher on the list than this. The reason the Fox movies were able to get away with not giving Wolverine his comic design for so long is because Hugh Jackman looks badass in just a tank top and jeans, complete with the mutton chop, spiked hair, and claws. Even without a costume, he is distinctly Wolverine. This is easily his most recurring look in the movie, so much so that it's a look that can have a ranking of its own depending on the hair. However, I don't think any of the hairstyles are so much worse or so much better to change the placement on the list, so they all come together at 10th place. Similarly, Wolverine's other non-costume recurring look is just a bit better. The brown and gold leather jacket gives Wolverine his iconic color scheme on a design that has just enough of a pattern to make for an iconic and memorable look. Between the two appearances, his hair in X-Men is far more Wolverine-esque, but the hair in X-Men Origins is also good, and the clothes he wears under the jacket is just a tiny bit better. So both looks make up this placement on the list. Finally, the first actual costume on the list, Wolverine's first X-Men uniform worked well for the time and for the movie, with the orange accents on the black leather making for a decent color scheme, but the leather is definitely not the ideal material. The suit looks a bit limiting and uncomfortable, and the design is also a bit limited. None of it feels distinctly Wolverine, it's really just the hair and claws that cause that. The only reason this is as high on the list as it is because the list up until a certain point is not very impressive, and it's an actual costume and one that works well as his first. It's just a shame that it took them as long as it did for them to move away from that basis. Another one of the cameos from Deadpool and Wolverine, this one is an actual costume. The Age of Apocalypse suit is, like all of the other cameos, a perfect adaptation of the comic design. The hair is crazy, but the suit material mostly works. The red patterns make it all pop. The metal end of his arm is badass. However, the overall design of the suit is not great, even in the comics. It's not a mainline Wolverine design, and like I said, the hair is a bit much, so it's never going to be any higher on the list, even if it is a perfect one-to-one adaptation. The second X-Men uniform is a big upgrade of the first, practically taking all the same elements, but making it as good as those elements can get, obviously without a mask. The black leather isn't ideal, but the accents really pop this time, with the suit being very much carried by the large X across the chest, which is distinctly X-Men. Still not a lot of Wolverine-specific distinctions aside from the hair and claws. After a deleted scene from the Wolverine teased an actual suit with a mask, the Days of Future Past look was a very disappointing one. However, in a vacuum, it's a pretty good suit, ditching the black leather for a more fitting material and a suit with a limited color scheme, but with brown sleeves that take it a long way. Beyond that, I especially love this Wolverine's hair with the white streaks. It looks badass. All that being said, at this point, being 14 years into Wolverine's live action history, this is so much simpler, so much more colorless, and even worse designed than it should be at this point, especially after the Wolverine tease that I just mentioned. All things considered, this is actually where the Fox X-Men movies peaked in terms of Wolverine's design, which is a sad statement because if this were a tier list, this would just be still the C tier in my opinion. Deadpool and Wolverine's designs make up the entirety of the top of the list, which were desperately needed. The Fox movies never did the Wolverine design justice at all. Wolverine's primary suit from Deadpool and Wolverine went through many changes throughout the movie, which are all different enough to deserve their own placements. The worst of these looks is the sleeveless one before he puts on the mask. I'm really not sure why they removed the shoulder pads, because without them, the sleeveless look doesn't work nearly as well in design and how well the suit appears to fit. Still, the material of the suit is perfect, the color scheme is fantastic, and the overall design of the suit, while a tad over-designed, is pretty much a perfect adaptation of the yellow and blue suit. It's just a little ripped apart, and it doesn't look complete here because of the lack of shoulder pads. But I guess here would be a better time to discuss the suit. Minus the mask for now, this is what we've been waiting for Hugh Jackman to finally wear. The color scheme and material are perfect. I love the detail on the claws holes on the gloves, and the shoulder pads really bring the look together. In terms of a primary suit for Wolverine to wear throughout the movie, this does work perfectly. Still, he's not wearing a mask, the torso is a bit over-designed, and removing just the sleeves, but not the shoulder pads, would definitely be the ideal look for this suit. However, this is such an improvement over anything Fox ever did that it's difficult to complain. I've never been quite set on whether I prefer the yellow and blue or yellow and brown color scheme for Wolverine, but honestly, I think this cameo in Deadpool and Wolverine cemented it. This brown and yellow suit is perfectly colored, uses the perfect material, and it's so sleek. It's not over-designed, not under-designed, it's perfect. This is also the only suit on the list and in this movie to actually adapt the sleeveless look with shoulder pads, which is also the ideal ideal look for Wolverine. On top of all that, the hair is perfect as well. I don't know if it was by accident, but this cameo made a suit that looks better than the main suit in basically every way, and one that has far more potential, lacking just one detail to make what I think would probably be the perfect live-action Wolverine design. Unfortunately, that one detail is a huge one. It's the mask, and there was no way I wasn't going to put the suit that he finally wears the mask on at number 1. After 24 long years, and even the majority of Deadpool and Wolverine, throughout which I kept on saying, please put on your mask, Wolverine, Logan finally puts on the mask in all its glory. And although it is on the worst version of this particular suit, and it's also extremely damaged, the mask definitely elevates it right back to the top of the list, because they nailed the mask in the color scheme, shape, material, how it connects to the suit, and the white eyes just bring it all together. Never before has it felt as much like watching the Wolverine jump right off of the page and into live action. That being said, as I alluded to, this look is not perfect. In fact, there are 3 mask designs for Deadpool and Wolverine that can be seen in promotional material or concept art that would have been better than this final look, and are potentially being saved for future appearances. For the sake of completing this list, I'll be continuing the ranking using these designs, going into 0, -1, and the -2 placements. Because of how they went about doing the sleevelessness on the final suit with the mask, I think it would have looked better had they kept the full suit when they gave him the mask, something that can be seen in promotional material but never in the actual movie. The suit itself, as I've previously mentioned a few times, is great, but the mask really takes it to another level. However, the ideal look for the blue and yellow suit is to get rid of the sleeves but keep the shoulder pads, and obviously also the mask, and I'm really not sure why they didn't do that, other than maybe some sort of issue with functionality, especially since there is concept art of it. The brown and yellow suit had that design concept and it looks perfect, so I don't know why they didn't do it. And finally, like I said, the brown and yellow suit seen in a cameo is better than the primary yellow and blue suit, but not just that, it's better than the yellow and blue suit would be, but with the shoulder pad sleeveless look, one that this one already has. So it stands to reason that just all you have to do is add in the mask as seen in concept art, and you'd make the perfect live action Wolverine design, one that I really hope we get to see at some point down the line. Until then, Wolverine's masked but sleeveless look from Deadpool and Wolverine is the best live-action Wolverine costume. However, it's not a perfect one. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, and thanks so much for watching.